March 8, 2012, 6 a.m. The air in Arcadia, California is cool, still holding the marine layer drifting in from the Pacific Ocean. This is a quiet, affluent suburb. Manicured lawns, wrought iron gates, security cameras blinking like mechanical eyes in the dawn. It is the absolute silence of early morning wealth, a normalcy that feels almost staged. A team of federal agents surrounds a sprawling Mediterranean-style house. They move with practiced, choreographed precision. They do not knock softly. The door is breached. Wood splinters. The threshold is crossed. FBI Special Agents James Wynn and Adam Roser step into the foyer. They enter with their weapons drawn, adrenaline spiking, eyes scanning the shadows. But they are not looking for a cartel boss. They are not hunting an arms dealer. They are hunting a ghost. They move methodically through the opulent rooms. Their flashlights cut through the dimness. They see designer furniture, high-end contemporary art hanging on the walls, luxury bleeding from every surface. But something is immediately, viscerally wrong. The atmosphere is heavy, stagnant. Wynn and Roser approach the kitchen. They look at the windows. Every single pane of glass is covered entirely in aluminum foil, taped flush to the frames. No light gets in, no light gets out. A sensory deprivation chamber in the middle of a mansion. They step onto the kitchen tile. The smell hits them first. It is not the smell of a domestic breakfast. It is a sharp, acidic tang. It is the smell of cheap, oxidizing alcohol, violently clashing with the industrial stench of warm glue and melting wax. It is the scent of a lie being manufactured. They lower their weapons. They are looking at a factory, a high-fidelity forgery laboratory hidden in plain sight. On the vast expanse of the granite countertops, 30 to 50 open wine bottles stand like glass soldiers at attention. They are flanked by copper funnels, measuring beakers, and a heavy, mechanical recorking device bolted to the stone. In the deep stainless steel sink, old unlabeled bottles bob lazily in a bath of warm, murky water, quietly soaking off their authentic histories. In an adjacent room, a hot plate bubbles. Fresh wax drips onto the naked necks of glass bottles, slowly cooling into a blood-red seal of false authenticity. The agents open the drawers. They find rubber stamps bearing the sacred names of French chateaux, names that command the reverence of billionaires, Screaming Eagle, Domaine de la Romanee-Conti. They find custom ink pads. They find stencils. They open a cabinet and uncover the archive, a massive, meticulously categorized filing system containing 19,000 loose, counterfeit paper labels. They have been artificially aged, baked, and rubbed with dirt to look as though they survived a century resting in a damp, subterranean European cellar. And then they find the script. Scribbled directly onto the sides of glass bottles with a black marker are the chemical formulas for a grand illusion, the recipes of an alchemist. One reads, 2 parts cheap, Napa Valley Pinot Noir, 1 part oxidized Bordeaux, a splash of something sweet. The architect of this laboratory is a 35-year-old man. He is currently standing in his own home, his wrists locked in steel handcuffs. His name is Rudy Kurniawan. For the last 10 years, he has stood on the world stage and sold an illusion to the wealthiest, most powerful men on the planet. He has taken their millions. He has drank their accolades. He has played them like violins. The wine, fake. The money, staggeringly real. To understand the architecture of this crime, we must first understand the audience. We must travel back to the early 2000s. The global economy is surging. Wall Street is bloated with capital. In New York and Los Angeles, a new breed of predator is taking over the auction houses. They are not the quiet, tweed-clad aristocrats of the old guard who sipped sherry in leather wingback chairs. They are tech entrepreneurs. They are aggressive hedge fund managers. They are ruthless Hollywood producers. These are men equipped with what they explicitly refer to as "fuck you" money. They do not treat wine collecting as a gentle hobby. They treat it as an extreme sport. It is a high testosterone contest of fiscal dominance, a way to measure their power against their peers. In New York City, the epicenter of this financial subculture is a private tasting group that proudly calls itself the 12 Angry Men. They adopt bombastic, cinematic nicknames for themselves. King Angry, the Punisher. Big Boy, they do not sip, they conquer. They gather at elite Manhattan restaurants, most notably a sanctuary of gastronomy called Crew. They take over the dining room. They routinely rack up 6-figure dinner bills in one single night. Their primary currency is exclusivity. They communicate in a specialized jargon. They talk constantly about bringing the lumber, If you bring the lumber, it means you brought a bottle of wine to the table so ancient, so rare, and so staggeringly expensive that it physically silences the room. It makes the other billionaires feel small. It is a primate chest-beating ritual, performed with crystal glassware and velvet napkins. Hovering among them is John Capon. He is the young, hungry, ambitious heir to Acker, Merrill, and Condit. For decades, it was a sleepy, respectable Upper West Side wine shop. Capon is currently transforming it into a ruthless auction powerhouse. Capon speaks the language of the angry men. He writes wild, provocative tasting notes that compare vintage wines to cocaine, marijuana, and what he calls chocolate sex. He openly refers to rare, expensive bottles as call girls. Capon is the ringmaster of this circus, but every ringmaster needs a star attraction, a main event. Enter a young man in a tailored, bespoke designer suit. He looks like a college student. He is boyish. He is disarmingly charming. He is polite. And he appears to be impossibly, endlessly wealthy. He introduces himself to the scene as Rudy Kurniawan. Where does he come from? The backstory provided to the elite is a masterpiece of vague prestige. Rumors swirl through the tasting rooms. The word is that he is the heir to a massive Chinese-Indonesian brewing fortune. The whisper is that his family holds the exclusive Heineken distributorship for all of Asia. People say he receives a casual monthly allowance from his family of $1 million. No one checks the facts. Number 1 asks for bank statements. The audience accepts the backstory without hesitation because the props are so flawlessly convincing. Rudy drives limited edition Ferraris. He wears vintage Hermes leather. He throws lavish, Gatsby-esque tasting dinners for the New York elite, and when the massive bill arrives, he pays it without blinking. But wealth is common in these rooms. Rudy possesses something far more valuable. He has an otherworldly superpower, a savant-level palate. During blind tastings, the ultimate terrifying proving ground for the egos of the 12 angry men, Rudy performs miracles. He can lift a glass of dark liquid to his nose, inhale once, and casually name the exact vintage year, the specific French producer, and the precise grape variety. He is a sensory prodigy. The rich men are absolutely enchanted. They embrace him. They bring him into the inner circle. They give him reverent nicknames. They call him Dr. Conti, a nod to his absolute obsession with the ultra-luxury Burgundy producer Domaine de la Romanee-Conti. They call him Mr. 47 for his seemingly endless supply of perfect 1947 Bordeaux. But Rudy's greatest asset is not his money. It is not his palate. It is his access. Rudy whispers a secret to his new brothers. He claims to have uncovered a magic cellar in Europe, a mythical hidden crypt containing thousands of pristine, untouched bottles of the rarest wines on earth, perfectly preserved since the dawn of the 20th century. Suddenly, impossible bottles begin appearing at their dinners. Ghosts materialize on the table. A 1920 Petrus, a 1945 Romanee-Conti, a 1947 Chateau Lafleur, bottles that experts claim no longer exist in drinkable condition. The alpha males are ravenous. They want the magic. They want to taste history. Rudy smiles his boyish smile. He is more than happy to share. For a price. The timeline advances to the years between 2004 and 2006. Rudy Kurniawan is spending upwards of $1 million a month buying commercial quantities of wine. He sits in the front row at auctions. He raises his paddle. He holds it rigidly in the air until he wins, outbidding everyone, driving the global market prices into the stratosphere. He single-handedly inflates the bubble. He becomes the undisputed king of the secondary wine market. But the public spectacle is just the prologue. Behind the closed doors of his Arcadia home, behind the foil-covered windows, the real work begins. The truth is entirely different from the myth. He is an immigrant. He was born Zhenwang Huang in Jakarta in the year 1976. He arrived in California in 1993 on a standard student visa. His family does not possess a Heineken distributorship. There is no brewing fortune. His uncles, however, are infamous. They were the architects of a staggering $800 million banking embezzlement scandal in Indonesia during the Asian financial crisis. Fraud is in the bloodline. In 1998, Rudy applies for political asylum in the United States, claiming his Chinese heritage puts him at risk in his home country. His application is firmly denied. By 2003, a federal judge orders him deported. He never leaves. He stays in America. He becomes an undocumented immigrant, a fugitive in plain sight, building a phantom empire out of glass and cork. His physical process is a marvel of meticulous sociopathic engineering. It begins out in the open. At the high-end restaurants where he hosts his legendary roaring dinners, Rudy always makes a humble request at the end of the night. He asks the sommeliers to carefully pack up his empty $10,000 bottles so he can take them home as keepsakes. He wants to remember the evening. The restaurants oblige. They wrap the empty glass in tissue paper. Why wouldn't they? He is their best customer. He tips in hundreds. Rudy carries the authentic empty shells back to his Arcadia laboratory. He becomes the kitchen chemist. He takes an empty, genuine bottle of a legendary 1945 Bordeaux. The glass itself is historically accurate. The dirt clinging to the punt of the bottle is genuine. The fading of the label is real. Now he must create the liquid to fill the void. He uses his savant palate not to appreciate the art of winemaking, but to violently reverse engineer it. He takes a relatively inexpensive older California Pinot Noir. He pours it into a beaker. He blends it with a mediocre bulk-produced French Burgundy from the 1970s. He adds a splash of something younger, perhaps a cheap Syrah, to give the dead liquid a burst of artificial fruitiness. He tastes it. He adjusts the ratio. He adds a drop of water. He tastes it again. He relies entirely on the psychological expectation of his buyers. He knows old wine is fragile, earthy, and strange. He creates a Frankenstein liquid that perfectly mimics the decaying flavor profile of a 60-year-old masterpiece. He pours this witch's brew into the genuine empty bottle using his copper funnel. He takes a specialized two-pronged blade corkscrew. This tool allows him to slide a fresh cork down into the neck of the bottle without piercing the center, leaving no modern puncture hole. He seals the top. He uses a hot wax drip, blending pigments to mimic the exact faded color and brittle texture used by the French chateau 6 decades ago. For the bottles he does not have empties for, he manufactures them completely from scratch. He sources vintage antique-looking ingress paper. He prints labels using a high-end inkjet printer. He rubs the fresh paper with dirt from his backyard. He stains the edges with wet tobacco to simulate the rot of a damp cellar. The economics of this operation are staggering. Cost of raw materials? Perhaps $100. Sale price at auction? $10,000. $20,000. Sometimes $50,000. The year is 2006. The market is primed. The egos are inflated. Rudy formally partners with John Capon at Romanee-Conti. They stage 2 massive, unprecedented auctions in New York. They are billed to the public as The Cellar 1 and The Cellar 2. The auction catalogs read like holy texts. They offer Rudy's unprecedented cash, the fruits of the magic cellar, directly to the public. The bidding is an absolute frenzy. Men shout over each other. Paddles fly. The first auction nets $10,600,000. The second auction shatters all global records, netting an astonishing $24,100,000. Rudy Kurniawan sells $35 million of fabricated wine in one single year. The auction houses take their massive, multi-million-dollar commissions. The billionaires fill their subterranean cellars with rare trophies to show their friends. Everyone is getting rich. Everyone is happy. The choreography is flawless. The illusion is perfect. Until the timeline reaches April 25th, 2008. The stage is set at Crew Restaurant in Greenwich Village, New York. Romanee-Conti is hosting another blockbuster auction. The dining room is packed with the global elite. Champagne is flowing like water. The 12 angry men are in attendance, rowdy, making crude jokes, and literally sabering open $10,000 bottles of Bollinger champagne in the aisles. It is described by attendees as a giant fun party within an auction. The crown jewels of today's sale are 97 specific bottles from Domaine Ponceau. It is an esteemed, fiercely traditional ancient winery located in the Burgundy region of France. The glossy catalog estimates the value of these 97 bottles at over $500,000. The absolute highlight of the lot, several bottles of Domaine Ponceau's Clos Saint-Denis, featuring mythical pre-war vintages from the years 1945, 1949, 1959, 1966, and 1971. John Capon takes the podium. He adjusts his microphone. The room quiets. The bidding for history is about to begin. But standing quietly in the very back of the room, near the velvet curtains, is a tall, severe-looking Frenchman. He is not holding a glass of champagne. He is not laughing. He is not smiling. His name is Laurent Ponceau. He is the current proprietor of Domaine Ponceau. He traces his family's winemaking roots directly back to the year 1872. He knows every vine. He knows every barrel, and he has flown directly from France, navigating international customs, arriving at the restaurant just 10 minutes after the auction started for one explicit purpose: to stop the show. A few days prior to this moment, Ponceau sits at his desk in France. He receives an email from an American friend containing a digital copy of the Acker-Moral catalog. Ponceau scrolls through the lots. He looks at the listings for the Clos Saint-Denis from the 1940s and 50s. He feels a cold, paralyzing shock of disbelief. Domaine Ponceau did not begin producing a Clos Saint-Denis until the year 1982. The wine sitting on the auction block in New York, waiting to be sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars to the smartest, richest men in the room, is a physical impossibility. It is a ghost. It is a glaring historical anachronism. Rudy has finally made a mistake. In the frantic rush of production in his foil-covered kitchen, his ego outpaced his research. He got greedy. He did not check his history. He printed labels, stained them with tobacco, and glued them to bottles for a wine that literally did not exist in the space-time continuum. Back in the restaurant, Ponceau steps out of the shadows. He confronts John Capon. The tension in the dining room spikes. The air is suddenly pulled from the room. Under the immediate threat of immense legal action and a catastrophic public scandal, Capon clears his throat. He steps to the microphone. He announces to the billionaires that there is a little unusual situation. He formally withdraws the 22 Ponceau lots from the auction block. The billionaires groan. They boo. The party deflates. The music stops. Immediately after the auction concludes, a journalist pushes through the crowd. He approaches Rudy Kurniawan, who is standing near the bar. The journalist asks a simple question. How did this happen? How do you explain impossible bottles? Rudy smiles smoothly. He adjusts his bespoke designer cuffs. He shrugs. We try to do the right thing, but it's Burgundy. Shit happens. The next day, Laurent Ponceau is not satisfied. He demands a private lunch meeting with Rudy. They sit across from each other. Ponceau leans over the table. He looks the young millionaire dead in the eyes. He demands to know exactly where these bottles came from. Rudy looks down at his plate. The charm falters. The actor forgets his lines. He plays the victim. He stammers. I don't know. I buy so many bottles. I buy so much. Ponceau does not relent. He presses him. He demands a name. 1 month later, under mounting pressure, Rudy provides a name. He tells Ponceau that he bought the Ponceau wine from a mysterious, reclusive man in Asia named Pak Hendra. Rudy provides 2 international phone numbers. Ponceau, now acting as a self-styled Burgundian detective, dials the numbers. They ring into the void. They are dead ends. Ponceau contacts associates in Indonesia. He learns a linguistic truth. Pak simply means Mr. in the Indonesian language. Hendra is one of the most incredibly common names in the entire country. Rudy has essentially told Ponceau that he bought the wine from a phantom named Mr. Smith. Laurent Ponceau puts down the phone. He realizes the terrifying, inescapable truth. Rudy Kurniawan is not a naive victim of bad European suppliers. Rudy is the source. The infection is coming from inside the house. Ponceau vows to tear the empire down. He begins gathering data. He begins cooperating with the FBI. But the federal government moves slowly. They need a crime with a victim. And the victims are embarrassed billionaires who prefer to keep their failures quiet. Ponceau needs a predator with deeper pockets. He needs a battering ram who understands the viciousness of the American justice system. He needs a billionaire with a vendetta. The scene shifts. Palm Beach, Florida. Meet William I. Koch, brother to Charles and David. He is an energy tycoon worth $4 billion. Koch is a man built on competition. He is a fiercely competitive yachtsman who won the America's Cup. He is a collector of original Picasso and Monet paintings, and he is the proud owner of a staggering, climate-controlled 40,000-bottle wine cellar. Bill Koch does not like losing, and he absolutely does not like being made a fool. We look back at the late 1980s to understand Koch's pathology. Koch attends an auction. He pays $500,000 for 4 extremely specific bottles of 1787 Chateau Lafite. The bottles are legendary. They are engraved with the initials THJ. The story sold to Koch is that they belong to the private collection of Thomas Jefferson, discovered behind a brick wall in Paris. Koch bought them from a flamboyant German music promoter and wine dealer named Hardy Rodenstock. Years later, the Boston Museum of Fine Arts contacts Koch. They ask to exhibit the Jefferson bottles in a high-profile display. As part of the vetting process, the Thomas Jefferson Foundation at Monticello raises a massive red flag. Thomas Jefferson kept meticulous, obsessive daily records of every penny he spent. There is absolutely no record anywhere in the archives of him purchasing these vintages. Koch is furious. A normal man would call the police. Bill Koch does not call the police. Bill Koch uses his wealth to build his own private intelligence agency. Koch hires Jim Elroy. Elroy is a retired FBI agent with a jaw like an anvil, a deep, gravelly voice, and a Rolodex full of international spies. Elroy is given a blank check. He assembles an elite strike team, former Scotland Yard inspectors, retired MI5 operatives, and actual nuclear physicists. Elroy takes the Jefferson bottles and flies them to a French physicist named Philippe Hubert. Hubert operates a highly restricted subterranean laboratory shielded deep within the Alps. He uses gamma-ray spectrometry to test the liquid inside the glass for cesium-137. Cesium-137 is a radioactive isotope that literally did not exist anywhere on planet Earth until the detonation of the first atomic bomb in 1945. If the wine contains cesium, it was bottled after 1945. It is a fake. The test results come back. It is inconclusive. The glass is too thick to test without opening it, and there is no cesium detected, meaning the liquid is genuinely old. But Jim Elroy is not finished. He pivots from chemistry to physics. Elroy takes the glass bottles to FBI tool mark specialists. They place the glass under high-powered electron microscopes. They examine the grooves of the THJ engraving. The visual evidence is undeniable. The lines of the engraving are too smooth. The depth is too perfectly consistent. The microscopic striations in the glass reveal the truth. The 18th century initials of the founding father had been carved into the glass using a modern, high-speed electric dental drill. Koch had been spectacularly scammed. He unleashes hell. He spends $25 million of his own money launching relentless, scorched earth civil lawsuits against Rodenstock and anyone who ever touched the Jefferson bottles. "I abide by the rules of the Old West," Koch famously declares, staring directly into a television camera during a broadcast interview. "If you cheat me, I'm coming after you." Now, return to the late 2000s. Bill Koch is conducting a massive forensic audit of his 40,000 bottle cellar. His team of experts examines the corks, the labels, the glass. The results are devastating. Koch finds over 400 counterfeit bottles sitting on his racks. The financial cost? Millions of dollars. And when his private investigators aggressively trace the provenance, the paper trail of the most expensive fakes, including a 1947 Petrus and a 1945 Comte Georges de Vogue, the receipts do not lead to Europe. They lead directly back to the golden boy of the 12 Angry Men. They lead to Rudy Kurniawan. September 2009. Koch unleashes his legal war machine on Rudy. He files a massive, aggressively worded fraud lawsuit in federal court against Kurniawan. Koch doesn't just want his money back. The money is irrelevant to a man worth $4 billion. Koch wants to expose the entire rotten, complicit ecosystem. His lawsuit claims the auction houses, the authenticators, the collectors, they are all in on it. They are a cartel of willful ignorance. They purposely turn a blind eye to the counterfeiter because his fakes are driving up the market value of their own sellers. If they admit Rudy is a fake, their own net worth drops. With Koch's private investigators legally digging through his trash in California, and Laurent Ponceau continually feeding actionable intelligence to the FBI from Europe, Rudy Kurniawan's world begins to rapidly contract. The walls are closing in. The grand illusion is incredibly expensive to maintain. Rudy's lavish lifestyle requires a massive, constant influx of liquid cash, the maintenance on the sports cars, the storage fees for the contemporary art, the staggering restaurant bills used to maintain his aura of invincibility. As rumors of his forgery begin to spread through the dark, obsessive corners of online wine forums like Wine Berserkers, the buyers begin to pull back. His auctions dry up. Rudy's supply of fresh capital abruptly stops. Desperation sets in. Rudy is severely leveraged. He defaults entirely on a massive $10 million loan provided by his own partners at Acker, Merrill & Condit. He needs a lifeline. He makes a fatal pivot. Late 2007, Rudy approaches a financial institution named Emigrant Bank Fine Art Finance. He applies for a $3 million cash loan. He uses his art collection and his supposed wine inventory as physical collateral. To secure this institutional loan, Rudy must sit in an office and sign official federal financial documents. He lies on the paperwork. He purposely omits the $10 million he already owes the auction house. He hides his exorbitant, crippling monthly expenses. And most importantly, he takes a pen and checks a specific box on a federal form, claiming he is a legal, permanent resident of the United States. It is the fatal mistake. Counterfeiting vintage wine is a niche, complex crime. It is difficult to prosecute because the victims refuse to testify. But defrauding an American bank? Lying on a federal loan application? That is straightforward wire fraud. That is a federal offense. The FBI, led by Special Agent James Wynn, finally has the legal jurisdiction to strike. February 2012. Rudy makes one last, desperate, frantic attempt to liquidate his fake inventory and generate cash. He consigns dozens of bottles of Domaine de la Romanee-Conti to an upcoming auction held by Spectrum Wine Auctions in London. Knowing his name is now toxic, he uses a second-party proxy to hide his involvement. But the net is already too tight. The internet sleuths, the forum posters, and the authenticators spot the fakes immediately. The serial numbers printed on the labels are chronologically wrong. The font is slightly incorrect. The lots, worth an estimated $785,000, are loudly yanked from the London auction block mere hours before the gavel can fall. March 2012. The FBI finalizes a 50-page criminal complaint. The federal judge reads the affidavits. The warrants are signed, which brings us back to the dawn raid in Arcadia. The foil on the windows, the smell of the wax. Agents Wynn and Roser systematically catalog the devastating physical evidence. They photograph the sink. They bag the custom ink pads into evidence markers. They seize the 19,000 paper labels. Rudy Kurniawan is led out of his mansion in handcuffs. He is placed in the back of a federal vehicle. The door slams shut. The mastermind of the magic cellar, the king of the 12 angry men, is permanently reduced to an inmate number 247-0-112. The timeline advances to December 9th, 2013. We are inside a federal courtroom in Manhattan. It is billed as the trial of the century for the global wine elite. The gallery is packed shoulder to shoulder with frantic journalists, defrauded billionaires, and Rudy's former friends sitting in uncomfortable silence. Judge Richard Berman presides over the theater. The prosecution, led by Assistant U.S. Attorney Joseph Fabricated, builds an insurmountable mountain of physical evidence. They physically wheel buckets of fake corks into the courtroom. They project high-resolution photographs of the kitchen laboratory directly onto a massive screen for the jury. They call their star witnesses. Laurent Ponceau takes the stand. He is handed a bottle of the infamous 1945 Clos Saint-Denis. He holds it up to the fluorescent courtroom lights. He looks directly at the jury. This cannot exist. It's obvious. They call Aubert de Villaine, the legendary regal co-owner of Domaine de la Romanee-Conti. He has shown Rudy's painstakingly crafted labels. He adjusts his glasses. He shakes his head in disgust. Those are labels printed by a printer. Bill Koch takes the stand. The billionaire looks at Rudy. He testifies to the $2,100,000 he personally lost to Rudy's charms. He does not speak of the money with sadness. He speaks of the betrayal with burning anger. The defense attorney, Jerome Mooney, has an impossible task. He stands before the jury. He does not deny that Rudy made fake wine. He cannot. The physical evidence is absolute. Instead, Mooney attempts a psychological pivot. He tries to change the narrative script. He portrays Rudy not as a calculating, sociopathic criminal mastermind, but as a tragic, desperate outsider, a lonely immigrant who just wanted to belong to the exclusive, high-stakes club of the 12 angry men. He just wanted to belong, Mooney argues, pacing the floor. He tells the jury that counterfeits are rampant, normalized, and accepted in the dark corners of the fine wine world. He implies that Rudy was merely a small cog in a deeply corrupt machine, a young man desperately trying to keep up with the demands of billionaires who demanded impossible magic. It's only fraud when you intend to mislead people to get money from them, Mooney pleads. He suggests Rudy's fakes were simply misguided gifts of social desperation, a way to buy friendship, not a mechanism of financial malice. The jury listens. They look at the 19,000 labels. They look at the $35 million in revenue. They do not buy the romantic tragedy. They leave the room. It takes them exactly 2 hours to deliberate. The verdict is read, guilty, on all counts, mail fraud, wire fraud. August 2014. Judge Berman looks down from the bench. He sentences Rudy Kurniawan to 10 years in federal prison. The financial penalties are crushing. He is ordered by the court to forfeit $20 million in illegal assets. He is ordered to pay exactly $28,400,000 in direct restitution to his wealthy victims. Furthermore, facing the wrath of Bill Koch's civil army, Rudy settles the separate lawsuit out of court for an additional $3 million. As part of the settlement, Rudy agrees to be entirely debriefed by Koch's investigators, mapping out his absolute knowledge of the global counterfeiting underworld. The trial ends, the gavel falls, but the philosophical question remains hanging in the air. How did one single man, operating out of a suburban kitchen with a copper funnel and an inkjet printer, successfully fool the most sophisticated, wealthy, and discerning palates on the planet for nearly one entire decade? The answer is as simple as it is dark, because the victims were entirely complicit in the illusion. The billionaires, the auctioneers, the professional critics, they were not blinded by Rudy's genius. They were blinded by their own massive, fragile egos. In the high-testosterone, primate, chest-beating world of competitive wine collecting, they needed the magic cellar to be real. They needed to believe that they were special enough, rich enough, and culturally connected enough to drink history. When a man pays $50,000 for a glass bottle of fermented grape juice, he is not paying for the liquid. He is paying for the story. He is paying for the social status. He is paying for the explicit privilege of looking down the length of a dining table at his financial rivals and watching them weep with envy. Rudy Kurniawan simply understood the psychology of the elite. He understood the architecture of vanity. He knew that if you take a cheap California Pinot Noir, put it into a dusty, historically accurate French bottle, seal it with red wax, and tell a billionaire that it is a 1945 masterpiece, the billionaire's brain will do the rest of the heavy lifting. The billionaire will smell the cork and detect notes of truffles, aged leather, and historical supremacy. He will taste exactly what he paid to taste. The true crime was not merely the physical forgery of wine, it was the weaponization of ego. Rudy Kurniawan served his time in a secure Texas correctional facility. November 2020. The doors opened. He was released. April 2021. He was officially deported by the federal government back to Indonesia, stepping onto a commercial plane as a free man, leaving his American stage behind. But the performance is not entirely over. Right now, in the dark, climate-controlled subterranean cellars of the global elite, tucked safely away behind biometric locks, laser grids, and bulletproof glass, thousands of his counterfeit bottles remain. They sit quietly on the mahogany racks, silent, undiscovered, too expensive to open, too prestigious to question. And somewhere, tonight, a very wealthy man will walk into his cellar. He will select a dusty bottle. He will pull the cork. He will pour a dark red glass of cheap kitchen chemistry. He will hold it up to the light. He will take a sip, and he will declare it the greatest wine he has ever tasted.